At para pag-usapan ang latest achievement ng Philippine Azkals, makakasama natin sina Darren Hartmann at Jing Jamlang. Thank you guys and welcome to the program. Now, Jing and Darren, you guys have been a part of the Azkals in some capacity, and we will get to that later on. But I want to start with Jing, and I want to congratulate you, man, because you really kept everything together. I know it was an emotional night for everybody, especially the people who have been following the Philippine Azkals and know what they've been through way before they came to prominence. And you anchored that game. How did it feel, Jing, to be able to call the most important and historic game match in Philippine Azkals history?
You asking me that question, I'm getting chills, watching back the goals. My hair was standing up. It was a magical experience, you know, to be a part of that and to see where we've come from as well. I think that's a huge part. And you heard my commentating partner, Sidel, shouting, shrieking is probably a better description of it. And when I looked over to him, he wasn't crying, he was weeping. Like it was so emotional for him because this is such a momentous achievement for the team. And I think the way it was achieved as well, not just the result itself, spoke a lot of the character that has made the Azkals into what they have become. And it couldn't have been more perfect than the way it panned out last night.
And you mentioned Sidelf. You and Sidelf have been covering the Azkals even before they came to prominence. But Darren Hartmann, who was a part of the Philippine national football team at the age of 17 or 18, how did that feel for you, knowing that you were a part of it before, the kind of support that you guys were getting, and then finally making it to the AFC Cup?
Well, I mean, in terms of the support, when you look back, and it's been 15 years already since I first attended a training session, and there was very little coverage back then. I mean, it's just people who just tell stories of what it was like back then, and all I can say is that for every player that has put on a national team jersey, and the 11 guys that started last night, it has been a really, really tough journey for some, and it's great to see. I mean, Phil, absolutely unbelievable to get your 50th goal. I can remember Phil scoring his first 2 or 3 goals for the national team. I mean, and some people have been able to do it year in and year out for the last, almost 2 decades. So it's been a huge, huge collective effort, and I'm so proud of everybody that has played, whether it's been a big part or a small part. Everyone's been part of it.
I was getting chills with you mentioning the first and second goal of Phil and realizing that he got 50 during that game. Jing, let's talk about the match. 64th minute, Tajikistan was able to score. What was going through your mind, and how surprised were you, or how positive were you when Ingreso scored on that incredible header?
I think when they scored in the 64th minute, we were able to see something from the Azkals that drove them to victory. It was really their character more than the quality of play on the field. And we saw the crowd as well get behind the team, which was huge, right? So what a moment it was. Incredibly downbeat inside the commentary booth, to be honest, to try to keep it together and keep moving forward. But the team didn't skip a beat. They picked the ball out of the back of the net, they put it in the center circle, and they were ready to go. And the crowd were behind them. Instead of falling quiet and getting anxious, they started chanting, Pilipinas, let's go Azkals. And that really pumped the team up. And 10 minutes later, we were on the score sheet. And that goal, that feeling of the eruption of Rizal Memorial Stadium, that's something that will stay with everybody that was there for the rest of their lives. It was absolutely electric.
All we needed was a draw or a win to get in the Asian Cup. Darren, when Phil got that opportunity for a penalty, what was going through your mind, and did you have no doubts that Phil, who is one of the most prominent players here in the country, that he would deliver?
Well, I think sometimes when it comes to sports at the top level, I think stories just write themselves. And I think that if there was going to be a penalty kick in the last minute for somebody who's worked so hard for it, it was always going to be Phil who was going to have that opportunity. I mean, it was after the team had put in, as Jing was saying, it was a game which could have gone either way. Yeah, and it just happened that you have the players who had the composure at the right time to see it across the line. I mean, it was a story that it couldn't have been written any better, in my opinion.
So we are now in the Asian Cup. Congratulations to the Philippine Azkals. But for you, Jing and Darren, what would you like to see happen in Philippine football as a result of this historic win?
I think us making it into the Asian Cup is a testament to the progress that has been made in the last 8 years. Now, the profile of football may have waned since 2011 to, let's say, 2017, but the progress is still there. The quality of the players are improving. The structure behind football has improved, and I think the large part of that has been the development of the club game. Club football has pushed forward the level of football in the country. I think outside of Neil, outside of Daisuke Sato and Ian Ramsey, all of these players play domestically, week in, week out here in the Philippines. That means homegrown players are exposed to that level of quality on a regular basis. And with clubs getting mandated to entrench themselves in communities and to lift up football in the grassroots in those communities, it's going to have a trickle-down effect. You know, you're going to be exposed to the high quality. You have professional clubs developing the talent, and that will only lead to better footballers, homegrown talent, and being exposed to high levels of football on a regular basis. And I think we've seen sort of the fruits of that already, but it could be so much more, using this as a platform to jump off from.
Darren, I think you want to add something to that.
Yeah, I think when it comes to football, any sport, it's a journey. And I think that the Philippines was always going to make it to the AFC. It was just a matter of time. And there have been ups and there have been downs. And I think what the players want, and I think what we need to see is that when we are going through a down, is that we still get the support, because that's when we need it the most. And now that we are able to play at the AFC, I think that collectively, everybody should be working together and setting a new goal. And that would be can we actually host the AFC? I mean, if we're good enough to play in it, why not? Let's all set ourselves target and say, okay, in the next 20 years, can we bring the AFC to Philippine soil? Because I can't think of anything else or anything better that will inspire the youth in this country.
2010 in Hanoi, that is the moment wherein the Azkals came to prominence. And just for the perspective of the Filipinos, Jing, how big is it that from that moment in 2010, we are now making an appearance here in the Asian Cup? How big is that? How big is the difference between 2010 to 2018?
It's spectacular to think about it. I think in 2010, the people behind Philippine football weren't even confident of being able to progress from the group stage of a competition that was just in Southeast Asia. You know, that's only a number of teams. And now we're progressed to become one of the top 24 teams in the whole continent. I think it's a spectacular achievement. And if I recall back in those days where we were setting up the games for the UFL, it was essentially a weekend football league. We were pitch side with, you know, a couple hundred spectators, wives and girlfriends and family members of the players and sort of the organizers and people who were just crazy about football. But we came in, week out to enjoy this. And to see it from there and witnessing the atmosphere at Rizal last night and knowing that in January the team's going to be traveling to play against the likes of Japan, South Korea, Iran, Saudi Arabia. These are World Cup caliber teams. These are teams that have played in the mecca of football in terms of international games. So we're going to be rubbing shoulders with those guys now, and we're going to be exposed to that level of football. I think it's spectacular.
So with that, Darren, how far do you think the Philippine Azkals can go in the AFC?
Well, to be honest with you, I don't think you qualify for the AFC if you're not a good side. So now that we're there, we're not with the big boys. For me, I think we're one of the big boys. And we were speaking about it before the game. If the Philippines has its day, has a good game, and we play against other countries that don't have a good game, I think we win. Every country that will play at that level will have 11 good players on the pitch at any given moment of time. And it will all come down to which country on that day, which team on that day puts in the big performance.
Jing, anything more you want to add with regards to how the Philippine Azkals will perform in the AFC?
I think it's important to be to temper sort of our expectations, because these are really, really good teams that we're going to be going up against. But as Darren said, you can never count out the Azkals. There's 11 players versus 11 players, and the whole legacy of the Azkals has been built upon being the underdog and pushing further than what people expected of them. And now that the quality is there as well in terms of the players on the pitch, there's no ceiling to where we can reach. And I think being realistic with regards to football doesn't take us anywhere. It's good to be dreamers, because that has allowed us to overtake the likes of Singapore, Malaysia, and other countries that are football crazy, but have not been able to achieve the things that we have achieved over the last 8 years. So I think it's important to be a little brave or courageous with our predictions. So I think we should, definitely be positive about the Asian Cup.
I think this is one of the most heartfelt interviews we've had here on The Score, knowing that these two men, Jing Jamlang and Darren Hartmann, have been a part of the Azkals journey since way before they came into prominence. Darren and Jing, maraming salamat.
Thank you.
And I'll see you guys again soon.
Yeah, see you.
For more sports updates, keep watching The Score. And don't forget to subscribe.